Well, guys, I can't believe it. A horrible betrayal coming from the person I am closest to in the entire world, my fiance, the person I'm planning to marry. I don't know if our relationship is going to be able to withstand this. just kind of kidding a bit there, but seriously though, she did go ahead and sell out of her Rocket Lab shares either today or yesterday. Something obviously I don't personally agree with, but I do understand her thinking. So I just thought it'd be interesting to share kind of her point of view from this. She's a very different investor than I am, and take a look at the charts, see what she did, and discuss, I guess, her strategy for her Rocket Lab shares, because I do talk about it a lot, and she's learned a fair bit about it from me over the years. By the way, she did make me a pretty cool Rocket Lab mug. I don't know how well you can see the etchings with just water in it right now, but I'll be rocking that with beer in my future live streams. I'm sure it'll be more visible when it's not, something clear in there. Pretty cool. So yeah, Merry Christmas to all you guys. I hope you also got something good out there. Okay, let's take a quick look at Rocket Lab's stock chart. So here we are in Yahoo Finance, and just want to talk about a couple things before I go into her trades, when she bought it, when she sold, what her thinking was. I just want to make clear, fully her decision with her own money, and I try not to influence her too heavily. Like if she asks questions, I tell her what I think when it comes to the stock and investing in general, but I try not to tell her what to do. So that's kind of the dynamic at play here. I've kind of been trying to explain that I think long-term investing is the way to go, but I guess she disagrees with me on this one, and it's hard for me to complain too much because she did make money on the trade. She's also been slowly migrating out of regular, non-paying dividend stocks into dividend stocks, which, to be honest, I think is kind of for the best, because when it comes to the majority of investors, we always say they should be in like the S&P 500 or index funds or safer companies and not actively trading. And yet I think a lot of investors don't actually practice that, even though it gets preached a lot. So to see her go into some safer companies that pay her regular dividends on a quarterly or monthly or annual basis, I have no problems with. It's probably safer. It'll give her some income. It'll be kind of comforting to see the cash coming in every month. And to be honest, she just doesn't spend as much time researching companies as I do. So I think being as hands-off as possible is a good thing. All that being said, what she has done with Rocket Lab over the past couple years, she's heard me talking about it a lot, obviously, and heard just how, convinced I am that down in the lower fours, it's an absolute steal of a deal. So she bought it, I believe, back here a while ago, around maybe $4 per share, went down a bit lower, but then it came up to 5-ish, maybe 5.2, 5.3. At that point, she sold out previously and got, a decent gain, I guess about a 20% gain, maybe a little less. So what happened? Eventually, it dropped back down to around 4.2, probably over here, I guess that was, and she ended up buying it again. Now, I think that's a lot in part because she hears me talking about how I think it's such an amazing deal at those levels. But anyway, it seems like it's worked out for her, because once again, we've risen to the high fives, peaking at close to $6 per share today. And she sold out at around 5.8. So pretty much the level we're at right now. It did go a little higher. And don't worry, I'll be sure to tease her for every cent it goes above 5.8. I'll be sure to remind her, oh, you could have got that for it. It's just all in good fun, though. And I guess what she thinks is going to happen. So it does seem like we've got a range going on, right? And we have a pretty clear base here in the stock price. It's pretty obvious. I think we all know about it. So the base down here around pretty much 3.8, I would say, maybe 4-ish. It's, pretty safe that it's not going to drop below that level. That's our support level. And then we seem to have resistance, around up here. So this is kind of the range in purple that, I see a lot of people see as like the trading range we're waiting for it to break out of at some point. Her thought process, I think, is, if it drops back down to the low 4s again, and it probably will, she'll buy again and take those returns and do really well for herself. I obviously believe that long-term holding is the way to go, and at some point it will break through this resistance and will continue on its way. I don't know if that's this time. She may very well be right that it drops down again and she can buy more. I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to take the chance that it never drops down again and I have to try and get back in again at some future date at a higher price point. So I'm very happy to hold my shares over the long term. I like to tease her about these things, give her a hard time, and tell her she should be long-term investing. But honestly, I don't want to put too much pressure on her and want her to be able to make her own decisions. So just pretty funny. I definitely enjoy the banter and do like the fact that she does pay some attention to investing. But yes, quite the betrayal for her to go ahead and sell my favorite stock at this point. But let's talk a little bit about what she's thinking that will happen, because it could be right, So I see, and Vince kind of talked about this in one of his previous videos, so you can check that out if you're familiar with Vince's bullish. Kind of two potential paths forward for the stock. Obviously, anything can happen on the macro side of things with interest rates and inflation and all that kind of stuff. To me, it all looks pretty good. And of course, we have an election coming up that could throw who knows what'll happen. Everything will go out of whack. Maybe. But all that aside, when it just comes to the company itself, I see kind of two paths forward. One is that, the larger investors, the institutions, analysts, people at large will kind of start to realize how great Rocket Lab is executing. Obviously, this big new contract is part of that, and it will just slowly, gradually rise as they approach profitability. We kind of see more milestones around Neutron launches. We see a higher launch cadence, increasing revenue numbers, all that stuff. The stock continues to gradually rise. The other scenario, which I think is probably equally likely, I still don't really know how it's going to play out, is more of a Tesla type scenario where, if you remember what happened there, is the stock was very flat, stayed in a low range for a very long time. A lot of people were banging the table, seeing it was getting crazy undervalued. There was a lot of growth happening inside, but nobody was paying attention to it because they were not yet profitable, and the bottom line was not yet soaring. Even though the revenue numbers were soaring, the price to earnings growth was soaring. They were doing a lot of impressive things on the technology side, on the back end, paving the way for that future growth. It was not recognized until there was profitability, until there was a price to earnings ratio, and then people were like, oh my god, holy crap, this company is profitable now, there's no way they're going out of business, and they're growing at a massive rate, they have this amazing technology, and we all know what happened from there, right? The stock was like a 20x. So massive growth in a very short period of time from Tesla. The scenario number two is we continue in this range. The analysts, the big investors, the Kramers of the world don't recognize what's happening. They still just say it's an unprofitable company. I won't invest in an unprofitable company. Everything stays suppressed, and we just bounce around back and forth. She gets her chance to buy in again, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three more times, each time picking up that 20% gain that she's kind of gotten so far. And eventually we hit profitability, and at that point, it's kind of like a spring that's been compressed for so long, it just shoots up and we get a big return. So if that does happen, what I'm afraid of is that she'll keep doing this, trading, buying in the low 4s, selling in maybe high 5s, maybe 6, and then we'll hit the point where the springboard releases, she sells in the 6s, the stock goes to say 15, right? And then she's sitting there saying, oh my God, you know, I made all these gains over this year and 2 years, 3 years making these trades. If I just held, I would have been better off. So that could happen in the future. We'll have to wait and see, but maybe she times it right that time and I just tell her, you know, please don't sell here, and she gets to have her cake and eat it too, making these trades, getting an extra 20% or whatever, lowering her cost basis, making some cash, and still being able to hang on for that ride when we do lift off. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But as I said, you know, I try to let her do what she wants. I'm very happy that she's kind of investing more in dividends these days. I think it's safer for someone who is not researching stocks as much as maybe you or me do. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you making any short-term trades around the stock? I know most of us here, I think, are just holding for the long term, and that's what I like to do. But so I like to hold my core shares, what I consider my core shares, for the very long term, never touch them. But then when we hit, you know, those low 4 levels, I'll add more shares, and I even like to play around with buying call options for fun. So far, it's worked out for me every time. I think it's like 3 times now I've bought call options, and I've usually gotten about a double on them when I buy it around the low 4s, and eventually we hit one of these bumps and it shoots up and I get a nice double. So to me, that's also kind of playing both worlds, but the call options is just very much small amounts of money for what I consider fun more than anything. It's more gambling than investing, but I guess I just have a bit of a vice and I enjoy doing it, so might as well do it on a stock and a company I know extremely well. That's kind of how I play it, while never relinquishing my core shares, whereas she just buys and sells out of all her shares at these bumps. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you're doing with the stock, if you're holding, if you're considering selling, trimming back your shares. Do you think we're going to stay in this range, or is this the time we're finally going to continue rising? Always love to hear your thoughts. And I'll let my fiance know what you think. See you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button and have a great day. Bye for now.